An email comes in, harsh, and your heart starts racing. Your reply goes out before you even think. That reactive anger, it can undo hours of peace. It can damage a relationship in seconds. 2,000 years ago, the Roman philosopher Seneca called anger a brief madness. He called it a poison we choose to drink. He argued this emotion is more dangerous than we admit. It disguises itself as strength, but it destroys our judgment from within. It destroys our health. We're going to look at Seneca's writings on anger, the hidden psychological traps, and the Stoic tools to disarm them. You'll learn to identify the moment anger becomes a choice, how to stop it from escalating, how to reclaim a sense of inner calm. In the moment, but it leaves us with regret. Can a thought from the 1st century help with a stressful commute? Or a frustrating comment online? The greatest cost of your anger, it might not be paid by others, it might be paid by you. Seneca saw anger as a choice. Not just a feeling, but a choice. We tend to think of it as automatic, a primal reaction, something that just happens, but the Stoics had a different model. A psychological sequence. It starts with an impression, an external trigger. Someone cuts you off, a colleague dismisses you, that impression arrives. Then there's a fork, a moment, however brief, where we give our assent, our judgment. We look at that impression and we decide, is this an offense? Do they deserve my wrath? Is it worth my peace? Anger is born there, in that moment of faulty judgment. It's our conscious agreement. The agreement that we've been wronged, and vengeance is the proper response. Seneca defined it as the desire to avenge a wrong, desire, a conscious wanting, not a reflex, a deliberate turn of the mind. Think of a minor irritation. A slow line, a terse message. Before the heat rises, there's an internal narration. This is unfair. They are doing this to me. I don't deserve this. That narration is your judgment. Your assent, the Stoic invitation, is to catch that narration before it becomes a command, to see the space between the event and your eruption, and to realize that space is where your freedom is. What if, in that moment, you offered a different judgment? This is inconvenient, but not an attack. This person is stressed, not malicious. The external event stays the same. The traffic jam, the critical email, but your inner world transforms. This isn't about suppressing a feeling. It's about disputing a flawed idea before it takes hold. Can you recall a flash of frustration? Look past the event. Identify the specific story you told yourself. That story is the hidden lever, and according to Seneca, it's a lever we alone control. You feel something, a sudden jolt. Seneca called it the first movement. It's involuntary, the sharp breath, the flash of heat in your face. That's not anger yet. It's just the initial spark. Your body reacts before your mind catches up. He had an analogy for this. It's the difference between stumbling and choosing to fall. You trip on a stone, your body lurches forward. That's the first movement, but then you have a choice. You can catch your balance, or you can decide to throw yourself to the ground. That decision, that's the second movement. That's where anger is born. It's your conscious agreement. You agree to the story that this deserves your full fury. The space between the stumble and the chosen fall, that tiny gap is where your freedom is. It's the window. Most of us miss it. We feel the heat, the tightness, and we fuse with it. We say, I am angry, but Seneca says to reframe that. The feeling is happening. You are observing it. There's a difference, so the practice isn't to stop the spark. That's often impossible. It's to refuse to pour fuel on it. Next time you feel provoked, pause for one breath. Notice the physical signal, a knot in your stomach. Tension in your shoulders, that's your early warning. That sensation isn't a command, it's just information, a signal that your judgment is being called upon. By spotting this first agitation, you create a buffer between the chaos and your peace. you start to see the real power wasn't in the insult, it was in your permission for it to matter. Anger pretends to be on your side. It tells you it's necessary, that it's about justice, that being outraged means you care. Seneca saw right through that. He worked to strip that disguise away. Anger doesn't serve justice, it takes it over. When you're furious, your vision gets narrow. You're not looking for what's fair anymore. You're looking for payback, and reason, the tool you actually need, gets locked out. You become a worse judge of things, not a better one. Seneca put it bluntly. He wrote that no animal is more savage than a person possessed by anger. What he meant was our greatest advantage, our capacity to think, gets overridden. We act from pure reaction. Think about an argument you've seen escalate. Maybe it started with a simple misunderstanding. One person feels slighted, so they answer with a sharp tone. The other person gets defensive and matches that energy, and the original issue just gets buried under personal attacks, under wounded pride. Nothing gets resolved. Now contrast that with a difficult conversation approached with calm. The facts get presented, but without venom. The focus stays on the problem, not the person. This isn't about being passive. It's not about accepting poor treatment. It means your strength comes from clarity, not from volume, from setting a boundary firmly, but without the theatrical flair of rage. That calm discussion has a much higher chance of actually fixing something. The angry confrontation, that mostly just fixes a feeling, a temporary surge of self-righteousness. And often it makes the real problem worse. So here's a question. Look back on a time you reacted in anger. Did that reaction actually solve the underlying issue? Or did it just feel powerful in the moment, a burst of energy that mistook intensity for effectiveness? Anger promises us control, but it usually hands that control over to the very person or event that provoked us. We become a puppet of our own agitation. Seneca invites us to see past the costume, the seductive costume. Real strength isn't in the storm. It's in the steadiness of the ground beneath it. Seneca had this idea about anger. He said it's like a poison you mix for someone else, but then you're the one who drinks it. The main person hurt by your anger isn't the other person. It's you. It eats away at your own peace long after whatever happened is over. He wrote that anger does more damage to the container it's in than to whatever it gets poured on. And you're the container. The corrosive thing is your own fury, and it's damaging the vessel, your mind, your body, your clarity. He talked about the physical cost. The flushed face, the heart pounding, the limbs that shake. He called it a brief fever of the soul that shows up in the body. Today we'd call that the stress response. Hormones meant for a short crisis flood your system. And if you keep ruminating, they just wear you down. Your blood pressure goes up, your sleep gets bad. Your digestion is off, and the whole time the person you're angry at might be asleep, totally unaware of the storm you're holding inside. The mental damage is just as bad. Anger takes over your focus. It makes your mind like a broken record, playing the offense again, practicing arguments that'll never happen, justifying your side on a loop. That's the opposite of peace. It's a cage you build yourself. You're stuck in a room you made, shouting at a shadow on the wall, and outside that door, life is going by. Opportunity is going by. Your own chance for joy is passing. Think about after a big argument, you walk away, your heart still racing. Hours later, you're still turning the words over. But the other person, they might have shrugged, had lunch, gone on with their day. So who's still suffering, who's still paying? The anger becomes your burden to carry. It stops being about the original problem. It turns into this private, exhausting ritual. So here's something to try. Look back at the last time you were really angry. Put aside who was right or wrong for a minute. Just look at the cost to you. How much mental energy did it take? How many hours of peace did it wipe out? Did it ruin your sleep, your appetite, your focus on good things? When you add up that cost, you start to see the trade. Anger often swaps a quick feeling of being right for a large piece of your own well-being. And that's a trade Seneca tells us not to make. Anger doesn't stay put, it moves. Seneca saw that as its real danger. It starts in one person, but it jumps. A sharp word at work can turn into a silent dinner at home. A king's temper can start a war. It's a chain reaction, and the links are made of bad logic and emotion. When you react from anger, you bypass reason. You're not signaling a problem to be solved. You're signaling a threat, so the other person's defenses go up. They don't hear the complaint, they feel the attack in your tone, and they respond to the hostility, not the issue. That's how a small disagreement becomes a rift. Seneca saw this in Rome. A ruler, insulted by some slight, would lash out. That lash would create enemies, those enemies would plot, and peace would shatter. He said anger in power is like a sword without a hilt. You might strike your foe, but you'll cut your own hand. You can trace a simple chain. A manager, stressed about a deadline, criticizes someone too harshly. That employee leaves feeling humiliated, resentful. At home, they have less patience. They snap at their partner over a mess. The partner hurt is short with their child. The child goes to school upset and is mean to a friend. One moment of reactive anger ripples through 4 relationships, damaging trust at each step. The original stressor, the deadline, is forgotten. What's left is collateral damage. This is the infection Seneca warned about. You catch a bad mood and pass it on. It feels justified. They started it, but the Stoic question is different. Who will end it? You can be a circuit breaker. You can absorb the spark and not conduct it. This isn't about being a doormat. It's strategic peacekeeping. Adding your anger to the world's supply doesn't make anything better. It just gives the fire more fuel. Think about your own links in the chain. Can you remember a time you were infected by someone else's frustration? A coworker's sour mood puts you on edge, and you carry that tension into your next interaction. Or a family member's irritable comment makes you respond with a bite you regret later. In that moment, your anger felt like a response, but from a wider view, it was just a transmission. Passing the poison, the real challenge and the real freedom is refusing to be the next link, letting the reaction stop with you. Anger only exists right now. It can't see the future. Seneca said an angry person is like someone falling forward, not seeing where they're going. The emotion just takes over. All you see is the target, the immediate wrong. Everything else, the road ahead, the consequences, your own life, it all just blurs into a rush. That's the short-sightedness. It trades everything you're building for the need to strike back right now. Think about wisdom, what the Stoics called foresight. It's holding the long view, weighing an action against what comes later. Anger takes that apart. It convinces you this feeling, this heat, is the most important thing, more important than a friendship built for years, more important than your reputation, more important than your own peace tomorrow morning. It's a terrible bargain, and we make it in seconds. Take the furious text, typing that sharp reply, hitting send. There's a surge. Relief, power, standing your ground. It feels like a victory, but that victory lasts as long as the message takes to deliver. Then the future arrives. The awkward silence, the damaged trust, the explanation you'll have to give. The relationship has a crack now, all for that fleeting feeling. The angry you, living in the present, made a decision for the calm, regretful you who has to live with it. Seneca saw this pattern everywhere. A ruler gets insulted, orders a harsh punishment. That punishment creates a martyr. It breeds resentment, sows seeds for a revolt. The angry ruler only saw the insult. The wise one would have seen the chain of events. The same thing happens in smaller ways. A sharp word to a loved one feels justified in the argument. But it plants a seed of hurt that grows in silence for weeks. A reactive decision at work made from frustration can close a door to an opportunity you didn't even see. So here's a practical filter, a question from the future. Before you act from that heated impulse, pause. Ask yourself, what is one thing your future self would regret about this choice? Your future self, the one who has cooled down, the one who has to repair what was broken, the one who values that relationship, that peace of mind. What would that version of you tell you to do right now? That question builds a bridge. It pulls the future back into the present where anger has blinded you. It's not about denying the feeling. It's about expanding your vision past it. Because the cost of anger is often a future you didn't stop to see. Seneca said not to expect ideal behavior from others, to expect the opposite. That's the premeditation of troubles. It sounds pessimistic, but it's practical. It's a rehearsal for the friction life brings. The goal isn't to dwell on the negative, it's to disarm surprise. Surprise is what anger uses. When we're shocked by rudeness or stunned by a delay or caught off guard, that's when our reaction is volatile. The unexpected feels like a violation. But if you saw it coming, Seneca wrote about expecting the crowds, the jostling, the noise. He said go into public, into meetings, into any task, understanding it won't all go smoothly. People will be inconsiderate, plans will change, mistakes will happen. Accept that as the baseline. Then you remove the fuel, the indignation. You're not surprised, so you're not overthrown. Your peace becomes resilient. Think about your commute tomorrow. Don't just hope for green lights. Tonight, walk through it calmly. Picture the traffic jam. Someone cutting you off. Hear the blaring horn, not yours, someone else's. In that mental space, you're not experiencing it. You're observing from a place of calm. You decide your response ahead of time. If this happens, I'll take a deep breath. Focus on the podcast. You're programming a different default. It applies to a difficult conversation. Before it starts, consider what the other person might say. They might dismiss your point. They might get defensive. Anticipate that. Strip it of its power to shock. When it happens, it feels less like an attack, more like a predictable part of the process. Your mind stays on solving the issue, not reacting to the emotion. So choose one likely frustrating event tomorrow. A long queue, a tedious chore, a talk with a challenging person. Close your eyes, walk through it mentally. See the obstacles arise, and in that vision, pre-decide your calm response. What will you focus on instead of frustration? This isn't wishing for trouble. It's building an inner shield. When the world behaves as it often does, you won't feel betrayed. You'll feel prepared, and in that preparedness, anger finds no foothold. When anger comes, Seneca said the first thing is to do nothing. Just wait. That's the heart of it. It sounds simple, maybe too simple, but it's a real act of strength. That pause isn't passive. It's you exercising your will. You're letting that first wave of agitation hit the shore of your patience and then pull back. You're giving the cooling off period a chance to work, letting the heat dissipate so reason can step back in. Seneca wrote about letting all its violence spend itself and settle down by delay. Don't meet the storm with more wind. Meet it with stillness and watch it lose its power. That's where philosophy becomes action. It's turning insight into a habit. The pause creates a gap, a buffer between the trigger and your reply. In that space, you're not a reactor anymore. You become an observer. You can see the feeling for what it is, a temporary, intense sensation, instead of fusing with it, instead of becoming the feeling itself. The goal isn't to never feel the spark. It's to refuse to build the bonfire. So in a real moment, what does that look like? It needs a tangible tactic, a physical anchor. When you feel that familiar heat rise, you enact your pre-chosen delay. You might decide to count slowly to 10, not just in your head, but feeling each number as a full breath. You might physically leave the room, even if just to get a glass of water, breaking that visual and emotional lock with the source of irritation. You might focus on a single, neutral sensation, the feeling of your feet on the floor, the texture of the desk under your fingertips. This isn't running away, It's a strategic retreat to higher ground so you can see the battlefield clearly before you commit your forces. Think about the last heated text or email you almost sent. What if, in that moment, you had closed the app and walked away for 5 minutes? The content of your message might have stayed the same, but the tone would have shifted from reactive to considered. Or maybe the need to send it at all would have evaporated, seen for the temporary venting it was. The pause transforms the conversation from a duel into a discussion. So here's a commitment to make. In the next 24 hours, when you feel that first jolt of irritation, from a slow driver, a demanding notification, a thoughtless comment, choose one specific pausing technique. Just one. It could be taking 3 deep breaths before you speak. It could be saying, "I need a moment to think about that." Claim that sliver of space. In that sliver, you're not being controlled by an old script. You're writing a new one. And with each pause, you strengthen the part of you that values your peace more than your pride. Seneca pointed out that a lot of our anger comes from these unreasonable demands we place on reality. It's not just the event itself. We add this layer of judgment, this quiet, rigid command about how things are supposed to go. This person shouldn't have talked to me like that. The world shouldn't be so unfair. My plans shouldn't have collapsed. That word "should" is the hidden trigger. It's like a contract we write in our heads, a set of rules we expect the universe and everyone in it to follow. And when they inevitably break that private contract, we feel justified in our fury. We take our disappointment as proof that a wrong was done to us. Seneca called this a kind of folly. He wrote that being surprised by wickedness or folly is itself a great folly. To expect perfect virtue, perfect competence, perfect order from an imperfect world is to set a trap for your own peace. You're guaranteeing your own frustration. Think about the last time you were angry in traffic. The core of that frustration isn't just the delay. It's the shattered expectation. You believed on some level that the drive should be smooth, that other drivers should be competent and courteous all the time. But what's more natural, more in line with the nature of things than traffic, than human error? Then rush hour, your anger came from expecting a reality that doesn't exist, and then blaming the world for not fitting your private blueprint. Or take a friend who forgets a commitment. The hurt is real, but underneath it is often the thought, "They should have remembered. They should value my time the way I do." But human memory is fallible. Lives are cluttered. To expect otherwise is to expect superhuman reliability from a very human person. The Stoic remedy isn't to become a doormat accepting all behavior. It's to align your expectations with nature, with how things actually are, not how you wish they were. You can still address the issue. You can tell your friend their forgetfulness caused a problem. But you do it from a place of understanding human fallibility, not from the heat of a broken, unspoken rule. So here's a practical exercise, a way to disarm those hidden contracts. For the next day, listen for your own silent shoulds. When you feel that familiar spike of irritation, pause and ask, what unspoken rule just got broken? What was I expecting that did not happen? You might find yourself thinking, my colleague should be more organized. This line should move faster. The weather should not have ruined my picnic. Each of these is a demand on reality, and each one, when it's unmet, becomes a license for your own agitation. The shift happens when you replace the should with an is. My colleague is often disorganized. This line is long, the weather turned. These are statements of fact, not judgment. They describe the world as it is. From that clear, calm starting point, you can then choose a wise response. You can set a reminder for your colleague. You can practice patience in the line. You can move your picnic indoors. Your energy goes into navigating reality, not fighting against it. Can you identify one should statement you often hold? One that regularly leads you into frustration. That statement is a key to a specific lock on your own peace. And recognizing it is the first step to setting it down. Seneca said when someone wrongs you, see them as mistaken, not evil. That's a total shift. We usually take harm personally, like it's an arrow aimed at our worth, but the Stoic view is different. It says vice, harmful behavior, is a kind of ignorance, a mistake about what's actually good, actually valuable. Someone acting cruelly, thoughtlessly, they're confused in this framework. They're wrong about where happiness comes from. They think putting you down lifts them up. That winning an argument, no matter what, brings peace. Their judgment is unwell in a sense. It doesn't excuse the action, but it changes how you relate to it. If you see harm as malice, it demands a counterattack. It demands vengeance to restore balance. But if you see it as a symptom of confusion, it calls for something else. It might call for correction or for setting a boundary, but not for giving harm back. The desire to punish starts to fade. You wouldn't get angry at a sick person for having a fever. You'd try to help, or at least protect yourself from catching it. Seneca wrote that a wise man corrects offenders calmly, without anger, like a doctor treats the sick. Think about that. A doctor doesn't yell at a patient for being ill. They diagnose, they prescribe. Their focus is on the cure, not on blaming the body for being weak. Applying this to our interactions, it's disarming. That colleague who sends a harsh email, the instinct is to read it as a personal attack, a deliberate undermining. The reactive mind prepares a sharp reply, but what if you saw it as a symptom, a sign of that person's own stress, their poor communication, their own fear being projected? Their ignorance here might be ignorance of how their tone lands, ignorance of respect, or just ignorance of their own crumbling composure. Your response can shift then. From matching their energy to addressing the real issue, you might reply, I sense some urgency in your note. Can we talk this through to find a clear path? You address the work, but you refuse the emotional poison. So here's an exercise. Bring to mind a past conflict where you felt wronged. Set aside the story of their malice for a moment. Ask yourself, what ignorance were they acting from? Were they ignorant of your full perspective? Ignorant of how their words would feel because they were blinded by their own pressure or pain? Were they just ignorant of a better way to handle it? This isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about taking you off the hook of your own resentment. When you see the ignorance, the action often loses its personal sting. It becomes a problem to be managed, not an identity to be defended against. This perspective builds a bridge to mercy. And that mercy, as Seneca knew, is a gift you give first to yourself. It frees up the mental space taken by plotting and bitterness. It lets you engage with the world not as a battlefield, but as a place where error is common and clarity is the remedy. Seneca makes this kind of startling suggestion that your sharpest reactions to other people can act like a mirror. They show you the parts of yourself you've turned away from. That intense irritation you feel, it might be less about their behavior and more about some unacknowledged shadow in your own character, when a particular flaw in someone else triggers a disproportionate fury. It's worth asking why that specific thing gets under your skin so deeply. In his letters, Seneca pointed to this as an opportunity, a profound chance for self-knowledge. He wrote that we should use occasions of offense as a chance for introspection. The fact that we are wounded, he implied, often points to a tender spot, a vulnerability or a denied truth about ourselves. Think about a common example. You have a colleague who is constantly seeking praise, fishing for compliments in every meeting. It grates on you. Their need for validation feels childish. It feels manipulative, but sit with that reaction. Is it possible your annoyance is amplified because you, too, have a need for recognition? A need you've learned to suppress or judge harshly in yourself. Maybe you were taught that asking for praise is weak, so you bury that desire, and now, seeing it openly displayed in someone else, it provokes a kind of envy or a self-rejection. Your anger at their behavior might be anger at that disowned part of you, or consider feeling furious at a friend's chronic indecisiveness. Every plan becomes a tedious negotiation. Your frustration is real, but could it be that you struggle with a hidden rigidity, a fear of losing control? Their fluidity challenges your need for order, and your anger is a defense of your own way of being. The mirror isn't saying you are indecisive, it's saying their trait highlights your opposite trait. And possibly your inflexible trait. This turns the entire dynamic of anger inside out. Instead of an energy that flows outward to blame and condemn, it becomes a diagnostic tool. A signal to look inward. The next time you feel that familiar heat rise toward someone, pause before you craft your rebuttal, before you vent to a friend. Ask one simple question. What does this person's behavior show me that I dislike in myself? The answer might not be literal. You might not be lazy like the person you're judging. But perhaps their laziness triggers your own deep anxiety about productivity, your fear of wasting time, your harsh inner critic that you project onto them. So here's a direct prompt, a practical application of Seneca's mirror. Think of one person you feel genuinely annoyed with right now. It could be a public figure, a family member, a neighbor. Identify the specific trait that bothers you. Is it their arrogance, their unreliability, their negativity? Now turn the gaze gently back on yourself. In what ways, however small or well-managed, do you see a reflection of that same trait? Maybe your arrogance shows up as intellectual superiority. Maybe your unreliability is with yourself, breaking promises about your own health. Maybe your negativity is a private stream of cynical thoughts you never voice. This isn't about self-flagellation. It's about honest inventory. The incredible result of this exercise is that it often dissolves the anger when you recognize the shared human frailty. The other person becomes less of a villain and more of a fellow traveler struggling with the same kinds of flaws. Your irritation transforms into a quieter, more useful insight. And that insight is a gift your anger, properly decoded, was trying to give you all along. Seneca said to step outside and watch anger like a performance. He looked at it like a doctor would. The eyes get bright, almost on fire. The face goes red or sometimes a strange pale color. Lips start to tremble. Teeth clamp together. The voice changes. It gets rough or it just gets loud. The chest is moving up and down. The whole body gets tight like an animal about to jump. It's a picture of someone who's been taken over. A reasonable mind just hijacked by the body shaking itself. And from that outside place, you start to see something. Anger isn't strong, it's kind of pathetic. It takes away your dignity. It leaves behind this twisted face. The Stoic idea is to split your attention. There's the part that feels the heat, and there's the part that just watches it happen. This isn't about stopping the feeling, it's about not becoming the feeling. To see your own fist clenched, not as something you're doing on purpose, but just as a thing on the end of your arm, squeezing by itself. To hear your own shouting voice like it's down the hall, tense, strange, nothing like the calm voice you want to have. That distance, that watching, it works like a quick treatment. It shows you how ridiculous it is. The whole act is so extreme, so different from the person you try to be, that it can just fall apart on its own. You're in the audience for your own temporary insanity, and what you're watching isn't a hero. It's an actor in a play that doesn't need to happen. So next time you feel that wave coming, you can try this. Don't get into the story of why you're right. Turn your focus inside, but with a cool sort of curiosity. Pick one single physical thing. Is it the heat in your ears? Is it your jaw locked up? Is it your breath going fast and shallow? Just name it quietly. My jaw is clenched. My shoulders are up near my ears. That act of naming, of watching, it makes a little space. You're not just the clenched jaw anymore. You're the one who sees the clenching, and in that space you get a choice again. You can choose to loosen the jaw. Let the shoulders drop. Take one slow breath on purpose. You're changing the reaction from the outside, using the body to settle the mind. Think about watching a video of yourself in full anger. See the overdone expressions, hear that tight tone in your voice you didn't even notice. Watch the composure break, the gestures that don't mean anything. It's uncomfortable, you'd feel embarrassed probably, not proud. That's the mirror Seneca is holding up. He wants you to see yourself in that state, to face the physical comedy of your own rage. That picture, if you keep it in your head, it stops you. It asks a simple question: is this the me I want to show? Is this how I want this moment to be remembered? When you think of it as a performance, you become the director again, and you can always choose to stop the scene before it wrecks the whole thing. Seneca talked about holding a grudge. He said it's like picking up a heavy stone. The thing that happened, the original offense, might have been quick, a harsh word, a broken promise, but the resentment, that's a choice. You make that choice again every day. You pick that stone up each morning and you carry it, and the weight isn't really the memory of what they did. The weight is your own choice. Your decision to hold them in contempt, to keep that account open, to let that old story decide how you feel now. That's the chronic form of anger. It's not a flash fire anymore. It's a slow burn. It smolders, and it burns your own fuel, your peace, your attention, your capacity for joy in other moments. Seneca saw this. He wrote that anger, when it becomes fixed, turns into hatred. It's not a reaction to a fresh wound then. It's a settled state, a permanent resident in your mind, and it poisons you from the inside because you're the one drinking that poison every single day. Think about how a grudge works in your mind. It lives in reruns. You replay the scene. You rehearse the arguments you could have made. You imagine different endings. That mental activity, it feels like you're dealing with it, like you're defending your honor, but you're not. You're just etching the grooves of that memory deeper. You're strengthening the neural pathway of the hurt, and the whole time the other person might be completely unaware. They've moved on. They're living unburdened. But you've appointed yourself the keeper, the full-time keeper of this museum for one old grievance. The cost adds up, the hours of mental energy spent going over it. The missed connections because you're guarded. The subtle tension that grudge adds to your posture, to your tone, to how you see the world. It becomes a filter. You start to see new interactions through the lens of that old hurt. You expect to be wronged again. This is the opposite of Stoic inner freedom. You've built your own prison. And you're standing at the door holding the key, but you've convinced yourself you're the guard. Now contrast that with letting it go. This isn't saying the offense was okay. It's not about reconciliation. It doesn't even require telling the other person. It's a private, internal act. It's setting the weight down. It's deciding the space in your mind is too valuable. Too valuable to rent out to that memory any longer. You look at that old story and you say, this happened, it hurt, but I am no longer willing to pay. I won't pay my present peace for a past event. The offense was theirs, but the resentment is mine, and I can choose to stop carrying it. The moment you make that choice, the energy tied up in the grudge is freed. It's like unclenching a muscle you didn't know was tense. That energy can flow now. It can go toward creation, toward curiosity, toward the people and projects right in front of you. So here's a prompt. Look inward. Identify one old resentment you're ready to put down mentally. Not for them, for you. It doesn't have to be a big betrayal. It could be a lingering irritation with a relative over a comment from years ago. The bitterness toward a former colleague who took credit for your idea. The silent anger at a friend who wasn't there when you needed them. Name it quietly to yourself. Now consider the weight of it. How does keeping this account open serve you today? Does it protect you, or does it just drain you? What small, symbolic act could represent setting that stone down? It might be writing it on paper and tearing it up. It might be simply saying in your mind, I release my claim on this hurt. The goal isn't to forget, it's to remember without the chains of resentment. To see the past clearly, but from a place of present freedom, because every grudge you carry is a piece of your life, a piece you are giving back to the past. And Seneca would ask, is that a trade worth making? The Stoics saw anger as their direct enemy. It's not a strength. It's the thing that works against everything they stood for. Their whole philosophy was built on 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, and anger. It attacks every single one. It doesn't just feel bad. It makes you less wise, less brave, less just, less in control. It unravels the person you're trying to be. Take wisdom first. Anger clouds your judgment immediately. It narrows everything down to one hot point. You can't see the whole situation then. You can't weigh what comes next. You can't really understand another side. You're just reacting. A wise response needs a clear mind, and anger takes that away. Then courage. People confuse anger with bravery sometimes, but real courage is facing something difficult with steady resolve. All your faculties intact, anger swaps that steadiness for rashness. It's a lash out. It's not a principled stand. It's a reaction, not an action you choose from strength. Justice is next. Anger twists justice into vengeance. Justice is about what's fair for everyone. Vengeance is about inflicting pain to settle a personal score. When you act from anger, you're not an arbiter of fairness anymore. You become a partisan for your own wounded pride, and temperance, that's self-control. Mastery over your impulses. Anger is the definition of losing that control. It's the inner storm breaking through. Seneca tied it all together. He said the greatest remedy for anger is delay. That pause isn't weakness, it's the active exercise of temperance. It's choosing wisdom over impulse, and in that choice you preserve your capacity for real courage. For real justice, there's an example. 2 groups protest an injustice. One stays calm, organized, their message is clear, their conduct is disciplined. They present facts, they articulate their case, they keep their dignity even when provoked. That takes immense courage, the courage to face opposition without becoming the opposition. Their strength is in that clarity. Another group, just as passionate, lets frustration boil into rage. Windows break, shouts drown out the message. The focus shifts from the issue to the chaos. The original cause gets lost. Which approach is more likely to be heard? Which one actually demonstrates the virtues they're fighting for? The angry protest often undermines its own goal. It trades the high ground of principle for the fleeting satisfaction of destruction. So when you feel that surge come on, there's a simple question to ask. Which Stoic virtue is being compromised right now? Is it wisdom? Am I seeing this clearly or through a distorted lens? Is it courage? Am I being brave or just reckless? Is it justice? Am I seeking a fair outcome or just payback? Is it temperance? Have I lost command of myself? Just asking the question creates that space. It reconnects you with your deeper aims. It reminds you the goal isn't to win an argument in the moment. The goal is to live as the person you respect. And that person, the Stoics would argue, is not an angry one. Seneca could be stern, but he also suggested humor as a way to diffuse anger, which feels surprising because we think of Stoics as serious. But the highest perspective doesn't always mean a frown. Sometimes it's a gentle smile. He pointed to Socrates, how he handled an insult. Someone told Socrates he looked like a satyr, one of those grotesque creatures. And Socrates didn't argue, he didn't take offense. He just said, "You must think I have a noble soul," because satyrs were companions to the gods. He reframed it. Turned the insult into a comment on his character. He didn't fight on the insult's terms. He changed the game with wit, and that's the key. This isn't sarcasm. That's just anger dressed up cleverly. It's about using lightness to show how small the provocation really is, to see the absurdity in taking ourselves so seriously. Think of a small daily frustration. The printer jams again, the coffee machine sputters out. Your first reaction might be irritation, a clenched jaw. But what if you greeted it like an old, mischievous friend? You could say out loud, "Well, there you are again," or "Of course you'd pick now." That simple act personifying the object, acknowledging the pattern with a sigh and a slight smile. It breaks the spell. It inserts a moment of awareness between the event and your emotional takeover. You're not a victim of a broken machine anymore. You're an observer, watching life's predictable little glitches. This works with people too. Someone makes a snide remark about your work in a meeting. The angry path is to fire back, defend, escalate. The humorous refrain might be to say with calm, "Well, that's one way to look at it," or "I appreciate the passionate feedback." It's not agreement, it's deflection. It refuses to accept the hostile tone as the currency of the conversation. By responding with unflappable, even playful calm, you drain the provocation. The insult needs your anger to validate it. Your humor denies it that fuel. The mechanism is a shift in vantage point. You climb above the situation for a second. To see its true scale, from up there, that rude comment isn't a spear aimed at your heart. It's a pebble, thrown by someone who probably has a pocket full of their own worries. The printer jam isn't a cosmic conspiracy. It's a piece of plastic and gears having a bad day. Humor is the tool that accomplishes that climb. It's the mental lever, prying you loose from a personal narrative of grievance. So here's a practical prompt, almost playful. Bring to mind one recurring minor annoyance: the neighbor's dog that barks every afternoon, the perpetually messy kitchen counter, the automated phone system you dread. Now brainstorm one deliberately humorous way to view it. Give the dog a funny name in your head. The sergeant of the backyard. Imagine the messy counter is an art installation titled Domestic Chaos. Pretend the automated voice is a lonely robot, desperately wanting to chat. The goal isn't to solve the problem magically. It's to change your relationship to the problem, to introduce a note of lightness where heaviness used to live. Because when you can laugh, even inwardly, you have already won. The anger has nowhere to land. Seneca would end his day with a question. He'd ask his soul, "Where did I let anger in today?" It was a nightly review, a quiet audit of the day's emotional transactions, not to punish himself, to learn, to see where his judgment had faltered, where his expectations had been too rigid. The Stoics called this practice meditatio. It turns the day's stumbles into tomorrow's strength. It's just a few minutes, a dedicated space to examine the moments where your peace was breached, to look at them with a calm distance the heat of the moment denied you. Here's how it works. Find a quiet moment before sleep. Close your eyes, walk back through the day. Let it play like a film reel. Look for the spikes, that flash of irritation in the grocery line, the sharp reply to a family member, the simmering frustration over a work email. Don't judge yourself for feeling it. Your job is to investigate, to be a gentle detective of your own mind. For each spike, ask 3 simple questions. What was the trigger? What was the story I told myself about it? And what would a wiser response have looked like? Take road rage. The trigger is clear. Someone cut you off. The story you told yourself in that instant was likely something like, "This driver is reckless and disrespectful. They shouldn't be on the road. They are doing this to me." That story, filled with shoulds and personalization, that was the fuel. The wiser response is to see the action as a common error, not a personal affront. To take a breath, loosen your grip on the wheel, focus on safe driving. The wiser response prioritizes your safety and your calm over the impossible demand for perfect traffic. This review process does something powerful. It moves anger from the realm of identity, "I am an angry person," to the realm of skill, a skill that can be analyzed and improved. You are not your irritation, you are the observer learning its patterns. Seneca wrote about this nightly reckoning. He said, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day. I go back over what I have done and said. I hide nothing from myself, I pass nothing by." He was looking for the cracks in his character, not to despair over them. To seal them up, your commitment tonight can be small, just 2 minutes. Lie in bed and revisit one single moment where you felt that spark. Identify the hidden contract that was broken. Was it the expectation that your partner should read your mind, that your project should proceed without a hitch, that a stranger should be courteous? See the expectation, acknowledge its unreasonableness, then mentally rehearse a different reaction, a deep breath, a neutral observation, a choice to let it pass. This mental rehearsal builds a new neural pathway. It programs a better default for the next time a similar trigger appears. This nightly review is the ultimate act of self-respect. It says your inner peace is worth a few minutes of honest reflection. It transforms what could be a source of guilt into a source of growth. Each evening, you are not just ending a day. You are training for a more peaceful tomorrow. So tonight, before sleep, ask Seneca's question, where did I let anger in today? And listen, not with criticism. With the curiosity of a student ready to learn. Anger is often about a basic Stoic idea. We can't control other people. That feeling when someone doesn't take your advice, or a coworker is late, or someone you love makes a bad choice, that feeling comes from holding on to something you can't have. You're trying to control something outside yourself, and when it doesn't obey, you get this reaction. Seneca talked about this. Anger is the heat from a pointless effort. It's your will pushing against someone else's free will, which you can't move. This goes back to what Epictetus said. Some things are up to us, our opinions, our wants, our decisions. And some things are not up to us, our body, our property, our reputation, what other people do. Anger usually means we've mixed those up. We take something from the not up to us side. A rude remark, a child talking back, a stranger's view, and we stake our peace on trying to control it. We act like their action is ours to command, and when that silent command isn't followed, we feel hurt. The answer isn't to try harder to control them. The answer is to let go of that grip, to move your effort from the impossible job of managing the outside world to the always possible job of managing your own view of it. Take an example. Say you have a family member who's bad with money. You've given your opinion. They didn't listen. It happens again. Your anger makes sense, but it's also a signal. It shows where your expectations went too far. Their money habits are in the not up to us column. That's their choice. Your opinion about it, your choice to give calm advice once, your choice to talk about it or not, those are in your column. The anger is the pain of hitting your head against the wall of their freedom. You stop when you stop hitting it. You can still care. You can make a rule about not giving them money if that's right. But you give up the need for them to live like you want. Your calm isn't tied to their choices anymore or a work project. You did your part perfectly. You were clear, but the result is average because of things you couldn't control. A shipment was late, the boss changed direction, someone else didn't do good work. Being angry about the result is, again, arguing with what's real. The outcome was never completely yours to decide. Your work, your attention, your honesty, those were yours. The result was always a combination of many things, most of them outside you. To link your value or your mood to that mixed result is to give up your own authority. So try this. Think of one thing that's making you angry or frustrated right now, big or small. Hold it in your mind and sort it. Ask yourself, what part of this is completely, 100% under my control? You might control what you say next. You might control whether you stay involved. You probably control how you see it. Then ask, what parts are not under my control? The other person's response, what they already did, the rain that cancelled a plan, a change in the market, what a critic thinks. Try to pull the threads apart. This isn't about doing nothing. It's about being effective. By seeing clearly what you can actually steer, you stop wasting your energy, your feeling, on trying to steer the sea. You turn your own ship, and when you turn the anger, it just runs out of a reason to be. There's nothing left for it to push against. Seneca saw anger not as a personal issue but a civic one. A duty, the leader, the parent, the friend, they act as an anchor. Their calm sets a tone. It creates space for reason to work. He wrote about the ideal ruler. Not for conquests, but for that quiet strength. A leader unshaken in a crisis. They solve the problem better, yes, but they also prevent a second crisis, the panic. They absorb the shock so others don't have to. A great mind, he said, stays calm. It becomes a harbor. This changes anger, makes it a public concern. Your emotional state is contagious. It's a signal. Choosing calm isn't just self-benefit. It's a contribution. You make rationality possible for everyone. Think of a family dinner. One person arrives stressed, irritable. They snap. The mood shifts. Others get defensive or quiet. The conversation turns tense. One person's weather creates a storm for the whole table. Now the opposite. A difficult moment. Bad news is shared, but one person listens, acknowledges the difficulty. Responds with measured words. They don't dismiss the problem, but they refuse to be swept away by the alarm. That steadiness gives permission to breathe. It creates a container for the worry, so it can be addressed, not amplified. It's clear in leadership. Two managers face a project failure. The first reacts with visible frustration. Blames people in a meeting, voice raised. The team goes into defense mode. Creativity shuts down. People cover their tracks. Trust erodes. The second manager calls the team together. States the facts without drama. Asks what can we learn and what's the next step. Focus on solution, not culpability. This calm isn't indifference. It's strategic. It keeps the team's resources aimed at the problem, not wasted on fear. The manager's composure is the team's most valuable asset in that moment. Your circle is your own small society. Who's affected by your emotional climate? Your partner, your children, co-workers, the stranger at the store. Each interaction transmits either agitation or stability. Pausing before reacting to a child's mistake, that teaches handling error with grace. Responding to a terse email with clarity, not sarcasm, it elevates the entire thread. So consider this. Look at your key relationships, your home, your core friends, your work team. Ask, what emotional weather do I most often bring? Is it reactive heat or considered calm? And if you wanted to be more stabilizing, what one small shift could you make? Maybe a 5-minute quiet moment before walking in the door at night, or a single deep breath before responding in a group chat. This isn't about perfection or being emotionless. It's recognizing your role in the ecosystem of moods. Managing your anger does more than protect your peace. You become a source of peace for others, and in a noisy world, that is a quiet form of leadership. Seneca took apart the whole notion of revenge. He saw it as an emotional trap. It doesn't solve anything. When anger tells you to get even, it's selling you a story. The story says if you hurt them back, your own hurt gets cancelled out. That the scales balance, but Seneca looked at that story and saw how poor it was. Revenge is entirely rooted in the past. It's driven by passion, not reason. It doesn't create justice, it creates a second wrong, and it hands control of your peace over to the person who disturbed it. You become a reactor. Your life becomes a sequel to their offense. He offered this startling perspective. The greatest punishment for a wrong, he wrote, is to have done it. The wrongdoer's own vice, their flawed character, that's their punishment. They have to live with the person they've chosen to be cruel or dishonest, that's its own burden. Your vengeance doesn't add to that punishment. It just drags you down into the same moral space. It makes you a participant in the cycle. True correction, the Stoics argued, happens calmly. It's about restoring what can be restored, protecting what can be protected, and doing it from clear principle, not from heated retaliation. Think of the modern version, the vengeful social media post. Someone says something hurtful about you online. The angry path is to craft a public reply, one that exposes them, humiliates them, rallies your friends. There's a surge of satisfaction when you post it. You feel you've stood up for yourself, but what happens? They reply, their friends jump in, a public feud erupts. The original issue gets buried under new insults, new alliances. Your peace is gone for days, maybe weeks. You've amplified the conflict, not resolved it. You've given that original comment a life, an audience it never deserved. Now the alternative, a private, firm boundary. You might send a direct message. State calmly that the comment was out of line, or you might simply block and disengage. You refuse to play the game on their terms. The dynamic ends with you. You haven't won a public battle, but you've preserved your dignity, your mental space. You've contained the damage. The toxic dynamic finds no fuel in your calm. That's Stoic justice. It seeks to end the harm, not perpetuate it. So here's a question. Look back on any time you sought revenge, big or small. Did getting even bring lasting peace? Did it restore what was lost, or did it just create a new layer of turmoil? The revenge fantasy promises closure, but the reality is a temporary, hollow thrill. Then the messy aftermath. The account stays open, just with more entries on both sides. Seneca invites us to see the futility. The desire for vengeance is a confession. It confesses we're still chained to the past event. Letting go of that desire isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about taking yourself off the hook. Off your own endless, exhausting reaction. It's choosing to build your future with different materials, not with the broken bricks of a past quarrel. Anger steals time. It ties your mind to something that's already finished. The Stoics valued one thing above everything else: the present. It's the only time we actually control. But anger works like a kind of time travel. It pulls you out of now. It makes you relive something that's done, and that gives an old ghost power over your current peace. You're not feeling the evening quiet, the taste of your meal, the talk beside you. You're back in that room, hearing that comment, feeling that sting. The past offense is over, but your anger is what keeps it alive right now. It's a choice to pay your current calm as rent for a memory. Seneca saw this as a deep waste. He said a wise person won't let yesterday's trouble ruin today's peace, because today is all you have. Marcus Aurelius, in his private notes, kept coming back to this anchor. He'd tell himself to keep his attention on the present moment, on the task right in front of him. He wrote that we shouldn't let our minds get flooded with tomorrow or dwell on yesterday. Anger breaks that command completely. It is the act of dwelling. It moves into a memory and calls it home. Think of a common scene. You're at dinner with friends. The food is good, the company is warm, but your mind is somewhere else, replaying a slight from earlier. A dismissive tone in a meeting. Your friends are laughing, but you're writing the perfect comeback you didn't say. Your body is at the table, but your spirit is stuck in a rerun. The evening in front of you turns blurry. You're there, but you're not present. You've been robbed. The colleague has moved on. The meeting is done, but you've volunteered to be its only curator. This is the theft Seneca warned about. Your peace is a currency, and anger spends it on a debt from a closed account. So how do you get back to the present when your mind wants to travel? The practice seems simple, but it's disruptive. When you feel that pull into a past grievance, you state a plain fact to yourself. That is over. This moment is now. Say it inside with a gentle firmness. That is over. This moment is now. This isn't about denying the hurt. It's about putting it in the right place on your timeline. It's back there. You are here. Your senses are your best help in this. Use them to ground yourself in now. Feel your body's weight in the chair. Listen to the real sounds around you. Notice the light, the colors. This sensory reality is where you actually are. The angry memory is a phantom, a story you're choosing to bring back. By stating the truth about time, you break its spell. You take back the energy you are feeding the past and return it to the present, where your life is actually happening. Try it tonight. If an old irritation comes up as you rest, feel the pillow under your head. Hear the quiet of the room and whisper to yourself, that is over. This moment is now. You're not erasing history. You're just choosing not to live there anymore. Seneca points to something beyond anger. It's a kind of willful calm, not just not being irritated. It's the presence of something stronger, a serenity you build brick by brick. Through the choices we've talked about, it becomes a fortress, a default state, even when the world outside isn't serene at all. He wrote that the greatest good is a tranquil mind. But he didn't see that as luck. It's the product of a life rightly ordered, a mind that practices seeing clearly, that pauses before reacting, that lets go of what it can't control. This calm is an active virtue. You don't just stumble into it, you cultivate it, you choose it again and again, until it becomes the ground you stand on. Think of it as a skill. At first, it feels like acting. You consciously adopt a calm demeanor in a stressful setting, a tense team meeting where voices are rising. Instead of adding your own heat, you sit back slightly. You listen fully before you speak. You keep your voice measured, your posture open. You might ask a clarifying question. Just to slow the momentum. You're not agreeing with everything. You're just refusing to be swept into the emotional current, and something happens. Often, the temperature in the room starts to drop. Others, sensing that steady anchor, begin to mirror that calm. The conversation can recenter on the problem, not the personalities. Your deliberate serenity didn't solve the issue by magic, but it created the conditions where a solution could be found. It stopped the contagion of agitation and started a different kind of contagion, the contagion of clear thinking. This is the flip side of the Stoic work. It's not only about disarming anger, it's about actively arming yourself with its opposite. So here's a practical challenge. For just 1 hour today, consciously act as if you are perfectly serene. Go through your tasks, making a meal, answering emails, running an errand, with the deliberate posture and pace of a person who is utterly unshakable. Move a little slower, breathe a little deeper, respond, don't react, note any internal shift. Do you feel a sense of space opening up? Does the urgency of minor frustrations seem to lessen? This hour of practiced calm is a rehearsal for the person you are choosing to become. And with each rehearsal, the role feels less like a performance and more like who you truly are. Seneca saw that the story we tell ourselves about something is what starts the anger. The words in our own head aren't just describing, they're amplifying. They take a plain fact and make it a personal drama. That's the hidden power of our internal language. A car cuts you off. The fact is a vehicle changed lanes quickly, but your mind doesn't stop there. It adds the commentary. That jerk just endangered me. He thinks he owns the road. This is outrageous. Each one of those phrases adds a layer of judgment, a layer of personal offense, and with each layer, the emotional temperature goes up. The Stoics called this giving assent to an impression, but that assent is almost always a sentence, a private declaration we make in our thoughts. Now contrast that with a Stoic reframe. The same event, a vehicle changed lanes abruptly. The internal language shifts. That driver is in a hurry or maybe not paying attention. This is an inconvenience for my trip, not a personal attack. I'll focus on keeping a safe distance. The facts are the same, but the emotional fuel is gone. The first story paints you as a victim of a malicious person. The second paints you as a calm observer dealing with a common hazard. One story demands anger as the right response. The other invites patience as the practical choice. This is cognitive reframing in its oldest form. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about choosing the most accurate and least inflammatory way to see things. As Seneca might have said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Our angry narration is that imagination working against us. Think about a more personal situation. A friend forgets a lunch date. The angry internal script might be, they don't value my time, they're so selfish, I always get stood up. That language turns the event into a referendum on your worth and their character. The reframe uses more neutral, factual language. My friend forgot our plan. This is disappointing. I'll check in to see if everything's okay. The first script leads to a heated argument or silent resentment. The second leads to a concerned message and keeps the friendship. The event didn't change. Your words about it changed everything. This practice means catching your mind in the act of storytelling. It means listening to that quiet, urgent voice that narrates your frustrations, and then gently editing the script. The goal is to replace value-laden, global labels with specific, observable facts. Swap this is a disaster for this is a setback. Trade he disrespected me for his tone was curt. Exchange this is ruining my day for this is a difficult moment in my day. The difference seems small on the page. But in your nervous system, it's the difference between a siren and a footnote. So here's a prompt, a direct application. Choose one common daily annoyance you expect to face tomorrow. It could be a long wait, a noisy place, a repetitive chore. Now, write down the angry internal monologue you'd usually have. Be honest. This line is endless. I hate wasting my life like this. Then, right beside it, write the Stoic reframe. Use neutral, factual, even slightly detached language. I am in a queue that is moving slower than I prefer. This is an opportunity to practice patience or to plan my next task. The act of writing it makes the tool concrete. It prepares your mind to reach for the second script when the moment comes. Your words build the world you live in. Choose the ones that build a world of calm. Seneca and the Stoics looked to Socrates. He was their model for facing provocation without anger, a man sentenced to death. The charges were corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. But he faced his trial with this calm. He didn't rage at the jury. He didn't beg. He gave his defense with reason, and when the verdict came, he accepted it. He even refused an escape plan. He argued that to flee would violate the laws of his city. That peace wasn't passive. It was an active choice to live by his principles and to leave by them. Not by the passions of the crowd. The Stoics saw in him a proof that a person could remain free inside, even when everything outside was taken away. Seneca wrote about him constantly, a north star of equanimity. He wasn't a myth, he was a real person. He showed that philosophy isn't about what you read. It's about how you respond when everything is taken from you. Think of his wife, Xanthip. There's a story. She comes to him before the execution, in distress. In her grief and fear, she cries out. She berates him. It's a public, emotional outburst. For most of us, the instinct in that moment would be to snap back. To feel embarrassed, to tell her to be quiet, to match her intensity. But Socrates, in the tale, didn't do that. He responded with gentle reason. He didn't take her fear as an attack. He saw it for what it was, an expression of love and terror. His calm didn't break. He met her storm with a harbor. That single response is a masterclass. It shows the separation between the event and your inner citadel. Her words were loud, but they didn't have the power to command his state of mind. He kept that power for himself. That's applied philosophy. Socrates used humor, too, for perspective. When told his accuser Meletus signed the death warrant, he mused that the man must think he's doing something important. He reframed the ultimate insult, a death sentence, into a comment on his accuser's small understanding. That's not sarcasm. It's a vantage point, seeing the entire drama from such a height that the players look small. Their actions lose the power to capsize you. So if Socrates could face an unjust execution with calm, what does that suggest about my reaction to a rude email? Or a cutting remark in a meeting? The scale is different, but the mechanism is identical. It's the same muscle of judgment, the same choice, to not let another person's actions, petty or profound, dictate your inner weather. When you feel that spike of indignation, you can ask a question. What would Socrates see here? He'd likely see a human being acting from confusion, from fear. from a limited view, and he would choose to respond from clarity, not from confusion. He'd keep his reason as his weapon and his peace as his reward. That choice is always available in every minor friction of your day. It's the legacy of a man who proved the greatest freedom. It isn't found in changing the world's behavior. It's in mastering your own. Imagine every person who annoys you is actually a trainer, sent to build your peace without even knowing it. That's the core of Stoic practice. The things that make you want to clench your fists, they aren't interruptions, they're the main lesson, they're the weights for your character. Without them, your patience is just a theory. An idea you haven't tested. Your resilience would be a story, not something you can actually use. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his private notes. He said, when you wake up, tell yourself the people you'll meet will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant. He didn't say that to make you cynical. He said it to define the work. The day's work. Then he wrote, I can't be angry with my kin or hate him. We are made for cooperation. To get in each other's way is unnatural, like feet, like hands, like eyelids. His point was that those difficult people aren't mistakes. They're the provided practice. They're sparring partners, showing you where your defenses are weak. So your boss's unreasonable demand, that's a drill for setting boundaries with respect. Your neighbor's loud music, that's an exercise in managing your focus. The endless customer service hold, that's a masterclass in sustaining patience when you have no control. Each one is a gift, even if it's poorly wrapped. It's for practicing the virtues you say you value. Think of a classic hassle: renewing a license, navigating a government website, correcting a billing error. The process seems designed for frustration. Long lines, confusing forms, impersonal voices. The standard story is victimhood. The system is against me. This is wasting my time. The Stoic reframe changes the whole experience. This isn't a personal attack. It's a simulation, a drill in perseverance, a test. Can you keep your composure while navigating inefficiency? Your goal shifts. It's no longer just to get the form stamped. It's to get it stamped without losing your serenity. To move through the red tape with calm focus, treating each clerk not as an obstacle but as a person doing a job. The outcome might be the same. You get the license. But the inner journey is different. You leave not drained and bitter, but quietly stronger. You use the friction to polish your patience. This perspective turns the world into a dojo. Every irritation becomes a kata, a form to practice. The driver who merges at the last second isn't a villain. They're a training tool for your generosity. Letting you practice yielding without resentment. The critical comment online isn't an assault. It's a drill in discernment, letting you practice separating useful feedback from noise without taking poison. So here's a practical instruction. Choose one current source of irritation, a person, a commute, a chore. Take one quiet minute and mentally thank it, acknowledge it as your assigned trainer for today. Say to yourself, this situation is here to strengthen my patience. This person is here to deepen my compassion. This hassle is here to fortify my resilience. This isn't naive positivity. It's a strategic reclaiming of power. You're no longer a passive recipient of annoyance. You're an active student, and life itself is your coach, demanding but ultimately benevolent. By thanking the irritation, you disarm it. You change your relationship from adversarial to instructional. And in that shift, you find peace and a growing sense of unshakable strength. The obstacle, as the Stoics said, becomes the way. Seneca wasn't aiming for a milder anger. He wanted a soul so clear that anger couldn't get in at all. That's the radical ambition of Stoic practice. It's not about counting to 10. It's about changing your inner landscape so completely there's nothing there to ignite. Modern approaches often focus on control, on management. The Stoics aimed for eradication. They called it apatheia, regarding the passions, not apathy, not coldness, but a state of being free from being overpowered by those destructive emotions. For Seneca, the wise person would become invulnerable to anger, not because they were numb, but because their judgments were sound. Their understanding of the world was so aligned with nature that the triggers just lost their power. Think of it this way: anger management is like having a fierce dog on a very strong leash. You can hold it back, you can keep it from biting, but you still feel the strain in your arms. You're always aware of the tension, the pull, the potential for disaster if your grip slips. Eradication is different. It's like the dog never appearing at all. The leash isn't needed. The internal alarm that says this is an offense, it just doesn't sound. The event happens. Someone is rude, a plan fails, but your mind processes it differently. It sees a fact, not an insult, a circumstance, not a personal attack. The faulty judgment, the assent that gives birth to anger, is never given. This is a lifelong aspiration. A North Star, not a finish line. Seneca knew this. He wrote about the wise man as an ideal, a model to steer by. We're all works in progress, but the direction is clear. We aren't just polishing our reactions, we are rewiring our perceptions. Take a practical contrast. You're cut off in traffic. The managed response is to feel the surge of heat, grip the wheel, and consciously choose not to honk or yell. You contain the outburst. It's a victory of will over impulse. The eradication response is subtler. You see the car merge abruptly. You note it as a hazard, adjust your driving, and your emotional state stays undisturbed. There's no surge to manage. The thought, that jerk, never forms. Your inner narration stays factual, calm. The event passes through your awareness without leaving a ripple. Or at work, a colleague takes credit for your idea in a meeting. The managed self might seethe inside, bite their tongue, plan a private confrontation later. The eradicated response comes from a different set of judgments. It might think their need for recognition is showing. The idea itself is now on the table, which serves the project. I can clarify my contribution calmly if it becomes necessary. The focus stays on the work, on the human frailty involved, not on wounded pride. So imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to be truly unshakable by the petty provocations of daily life. The thoughtless comment that usually stings for hours, it just glances off. The bureaucratic delay that normally fuels frustration, it becomes a simple waiting period, a chance to pause. In that imagined state, your energy isn't spent on internal battles against irritation. It's freed for attention, for creativity, for genuine connection with the people and tasks in front of you. That's Seneca's high standard, a soul fortified not by suppression but by profound understanding, where peace isn't something you fight to regain, it's the ground you naturally stand on. Seneca talked about death a lot, not in a morbid way but to clarify things. He'd ask, will this matter on your last day? That's the Stoic practice, Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. It sounds stark, but the point isn't to frighten you. It's to focus you, to pull the lens all the way back to the final frame of your life. And from there, to see what actually holds weight. From that final perspective, most of what makes us angry daily just vanishes. It becomes invisible. The rude comment, the bureaucratic delay, the spilled coffee, the perceived slight in a meeting, these are anxieties of a creature that thinks it has unlimited time. Remembering death shatters that. It forces a ruthless prioritization of the heart. In his letters, Seneca wrote constantly about life's brevity. He told his friend Lucilius to live each day as if it were complete, as if it could be your last. He wasn't promoting a frantic hedonism. He was advocating for a profound seriousness about your attention. He wrote that we act like mortals in all that we fear, and like immortals in all that we desire. We fear small losses as if we'll live forever to regret them, and we delay meaningful actions as if we have endless tomorrows. The awareness of death corrects both errors. It teaches us to fear less of the trivial and to desire more of the essential. So how does this mute a trivial anger? It performs an instant comparison. You place your current frustration beside the fact of your mortality, and the scale becomes laughable. Imagine you're on your deathbed, looking back across the tapestry of your life. You're reviewing the moments of love, of courage, of creation, of quiet joy, and then your memory lands on that afternoon 20 years prior, when you had a screaming match with your partner over who left the dishes in the sink. How much space does that fight occupy in the final reckoning? What weight does that grievance carry? From that ultimate viewpoint, it's a speck of dust on the lens. A momentary noise in a symphony. The practice asks you to make that comparison now, not in 20 years, but today, while the anger is hot. There's a practical phrase, a mental tool. When you feel that familiar heat of indignation rising, you pause, and you mentally begin this sentence: in the face of death, this is. Then you complete it honestly. In the face of death, this is a slow driver. In the face of death, this is a critical email. In the face of death, this is a forgotten errand. The act of speaking that prefix does something. It shrinks the provocation to its true, miniature size. It reveals the anger for what it often is: a tantrum thrown by a part of you that has forgotten it will not live forever. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about conserving your finite emotional energy for what genuinely merits it. The Stoic remembrance of death isn't a morbid fixation. It's the ultimate clarifier. It asks you to invest your irreplaceable time and spirit only in endeavors worthy of a being who knows its days are numbered. The next time a petty quarrel threatens to consume your evening or a professional slight your week, invite that perspective in. Ask quietly, will this echo on my last day? If the answer is no, then you've just been given a gift, the gift of your attention back to spend on something that will. Seneca was practical about this. We train our mind, but we should also avoid the places and habits that we know will stir up anger. He didn't see that as running away, it was strategy. A soldier doesn't prove his courage by choosing the swamp when there's a clear path. He saves his strength for the real fight, and we save our rational strength by not wasting it on friction that doesn't matter. Our willpower is limited. If we use it all up on small, avoidable things, we'll have nothing left when something serious happens. That's the physical and mental hygiene of a Stoic life. It's the practical base everything else is built on. He wrote about choosing who you spend time with. To be around habitually angry or cynical people is like breathing a toxic air. Their mood spreads, their constant complaining trains your mind to see the world as one long list of offenses. Seneca said to seek out calm people. Their composure, just by example, strengthens your own. This isn't about an echo chamber. It's about making sure your social world has more models of calm than models of storm. Think about your own circles. Is there someone whose conversation always leaves you feeling drained or defensive? Their influence might be more real than you think. They're shaping your neural pathways toward reactivity. He also talked about the physical state. A body that's hungry, tired, or uncomfortable is a body ready for anger. The mind and body aren't separate. When your blood sugar is low or you're sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, the part for reason and control, just works worse. The amygdala, the alarm system, gets more sensitive. In that weakened state, a small inconvenience feels like a major threat. Your rational defenses are down. Seneca knew this. He said tending to your basic well-being isn't a luxury. It's a duty to your philosophy. You can't practice patience from a state of sheer depletion. Think about road rage. Now think about timing. Is it more likely on a leisurely Sunday drive or during the frantic commute home when you're tired and hungry? The trigger is the same careless driver, but your capacity to meet that trigger calmly is completely different. The Stoic move is to see that pattern. To see that hour not just as traffic, but as a high-risk period for your peace. The practical response might be to have a snack before leaving work, or to listen to an audiobook that engages you instead of agitating you. You're managing the conditions so your better self can show up. The digital world is our modern arena for that friction, doom scrolling through angry comments before bed. Getting into heated debates with strangers online about things that don't touch your real life. These aren't tests of character, they're traps. They're designed to trigger the reactive mind. Seneca didn't have social media, but he understood the principle. He warned against needlessly walking into turbulent crowds, in the forum or in conversation. Every angry tweet you read, every inflammatory headline, it's a small dose of poison for your judgment. It normalizes outrage. It makes your inner world a reflection of the loudest, angriest voices online. So here's a piece of practical hygiene. Look at your daily life and find one easily removable trigger. It might be a social media group whose content always sparks irritation. It could be a news program that leaves you feeling cynical and tense. It might be checking work emails right before sleep, guaranteeing your mind races with tomorrow's problems. Choose one for the next week. Consciously step back from it. Unfollow the group, skip the program, leave the phone outside the bedroom. Watch the difference in your baseline mental state. You're not avoiding reality. You're curating the quality of the information that shapes your reality. You're removing a known irritant so your practiced calm has stable ground to grow. That's self-care in the truest Stoic sense, creating the external conditions that let your internal wisdom work. Seneca never saw Twitter, but his writing on anger, it maps perfectly onto our online outrage. The whole digital space is a laboratory for every trap he described. It shrinks the pause between the spark and the explosion down to nothing. That first flash of heat when you read something provocative, you have a keyboard right there. The space for reason just collapses. We give our assent to the story of offense in a heartbeat, and with one more click, we launch that desire for vengeance into the world. Seneca warned about the speed of anger, how it rushes past all deliberation. Our feeds are engineered for that rush, the notification, the bold text, the immediate reply button. It's all frictionless. The architecture itself is designed to bypass the very buffer Stoic practice tries to build. Then there are the distorted shoulds that flourish online. We scroll through curated lives, polished opinions. We build a silent contract. People should think like me. They should be as informed. Debates should be civil, logical. When a stranger's hot take breaks these invisible rules, our indignation feels righteous, but it's still a should, a demand placed on a vast, anonymous crowd that was never going to follow our personal blueprint. Seneca would see the folly. To expect perfect reason from a global forum is to guarantee your own perpetual fury. The illusion of righteous vengeance is maybe the most seductive part. Offline, revenge has consequences. Physical, social, online, it feels clean, powerful. You type a cutting reply, you hit post, you feel that surge of vindication. You've put them in their place, you've stood up for your side. But this is Seneca's poison in a digital bottle. You mix it for a distant avatar, but you are the one who drinks the agitation. Your heart rate is up, you're checking for likes, for replies. Your mind is tethered to that thread, that stranger, in a loop of reaction. The other person might log off and live their life. You're left holding the stone of your own grudge. So here's a direct application of the pause. The next time a comment ignites that familiar heat, open the reply box. Type out your furious, brilliant, devastating response. Get it all out, then do not hit send. Save it as a draft, close the app, walk away for 30 minutes. Make tea, pet the dog, look out a window. This is the modern equivalent of Seneca's prescribed delay. You let the initial violence of the feeling spend itself on the page, not in the public square. After that half hour, open the draft again, read it with the eyes of your calmer self. Ask the Stoic question, does this serve wisdom or just my wounded pride? Does it correct an error or just perpetuate a cycle of harm? You will almost always find the need to send it has evaporated. The act of writing it was the venting. Posting it would have been an infection. This 30-minute rule is a circuit breaker. It inserts the missing space between the stumble and the chosen fall. It reclaims your agency from platforms built to exploit your reactivity. Your peace is too valuable to trade for the fleeting currency of having the last word in an argument no one will remember tomorrow. Try it just once. The relief you feel when you delete that draft, unburdened, that's the sound of your own freedom clicking back into place. For Seneca, fighting anger wasn't a single victory. It was a daily campaign. That's the final point. The tools, the pause, the nightly review, reframing stories, they aren't one-time fixes. They're core disciplines. Like a musician practicing scales or an athlete training, you repeat them to build strength in the mind. Stoicism sees this as a lifelong journey. The goal isn't a perfect, anger-free life. The goal is progress. It's strengthening your capacity to return to calm, to come back more quickly, more reliably, each time you're tested. Seneca was honest about this. He wrote about his own struggles with temper, times when his own advice felt distant. In one letter, he admits feeling irritated by the noise in a public bath. He didn't present himself as a sage who'd transcended feeling. He presented himself as a fellow traveler, practicing the principles he taught. That's encouraging. It means the frustration you feel when you lose patience when you react instead of respond, that's not failure. It's part of the material you're working with. The practice is in the gentle self-correction afterward, not in never making a mistake. Think of physical fitness. If you aim to run a marathon, you don't expect to succeed on the first try. You build a routine. Some days the run feels effortless. Other days every step is a struggle. You might skip a day entirely, but you don't declare the whole endeavor a failure and quit. You lace up your shoes again the next morning. The missed day doesn't erase the strength you've built. It just reminds you that consistency is the path. Managing reactive emotion works the same. There will be days when the pause comes naturally, when you see the ignorance behind an offense, when your serenity feels unshakable. And there will be days when the old patterns take over in an instant. The practice is in returning, in the quiet moment after the storm, applying the review. Asking, where did my judgment slip? What story took over? That's how the neural pathways of patience are carved, through repetition and gentle redirection. So a simple way forward. Instead of overhauling everything at once, choose one small daily practice from all this. Commit to it for the next 7 days. It might be the 30-minute rule before sending a reactive message. It could be the nightly review of a single moment of irritation. It might be searching for the hidden should in your frustration. Whatever you choose, hold it lightly. Accept now that some days will be harder. Your commitment isn't to perfect execution. It's to the simple act of remembering to try. Each time you remember, you reinforce a new identity. You tell yourself, I am someone who values my peace enough to practice it. That's the essence of the Stoic path. It transforms philosophy from something you read into something you do, every single day, building a life of greater clarity from the ground up. Seneca's work maps anger completely. From the first spark to the final cost, he shows it isn't a force of nature, it's a choice, a judgment we make when we're vulnerable, and it harms us more than anyone else. It trades our long-term peace for a short burst of feeling right. The whole journey rests on that. Anger is a poison we mix for someone else but end up drinking ourselves. It's a brief madness. It makes us worse judges, worse leaders, worse friends. But the power to disarm it is in our own perception, in that gap between something happening and us agreeing to be upset by it. In adjusting our expectations away from how things should be and toward how they actually are, and in seeing our calm not as a private luxury but as a social duty. A stabilizing gift we give to every circle we're part of. The goal isn't a life without feeling, it's a life with inner freedom, a mind not hijacked by every provocation. Anchored in a serenity built choice by choice, Seneca captured it. He wrote, "What is more pleasant than a tranquil mind? What is more settled, more constant, more gentle?" It's a thing beyond price. That's the beauty he points to, not the absence of conflict, the presence of an unshakable peace inside it, a mind that's made friends with reality. And in doing that, found a quiet joy nothing outside can take away. The path forward starts with one step. Before tomorrow, choose one insight to implement. Just one. It might be the 30-minute pause before a reactive message, the nightly review asking where you let anger in, or listening for your own hidden should statements and replacing them with his statements. Let it be small, specific, yours. This transformation isn't built in a day, it's built daily. Through these consistent, quiet acts, we'd like to hear which Stoic tool resonated most. Which idea feels like a key for more peace in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is a community built on shared growth, practical wisdom. And if you found value walking these ancient paths, consider subscribing. There are many more journeys ahead, into ideas that help us live with more clarity, courage, and calm. Thank you for listening.